This is Justin Powell with Streamline. We're going to go ahead and get started with the monthly training for September of 2020. Today we're going to go over the community risk. This is September of 2020. October is typically fire prevention month. So I thought we could go over this and review some of the features that we have in our community risk module. You should see the community risk module in your Streamline admin system. If for some reason you don't have this, either contact support or contact sales, and we can enable this module for you. There is no charge for the community risk module. This is it's an additional module that we added. Some of you may have come on board after this, and you should have it in your system. If you came on board as a Streamline customer before we added the community risk module, you may not see it in your system, but we can turn it on for you. So when you log in, across the top, you'll see the community risk module, and the community risk module has its own properties tab. So under my properties tab, I'm only seeing properties that I've assigned to community risk. So we'll go into one of these properties here. I'm just going to select edit, and the functionality works the same whether you're in the commercial area or whether you're in community risk. The difference that you'll see in here is that under the details page, you can see that we've removed some things, and there's some things that have been added. So most of the information at the top is the same. You've got your name, property ID, street addresses, those types of things. But you can see we've moved floors above ground and floors below ground up to the top of the page. Square foot and building status have been moved up. Property ownership is also up here. And you can see now that we have a category. The category, there's three different categories that you have under this lookup. You have a commercial section, you have community risk, and then you have commercial and community risk. If I list this as a commercial property, I will not see this under the community risk section. It will be over here under the regular properties menu that you're used to working in today. If I make this a community risk property, and the reason we have community risk properties is you may not be doing commercial inspections on these. If you're out doing single family homes, you're probably not doing inspections on single family homes, right? You're only doing inspections on maybe your apartment buildings. Some communities do them on townhomes and duplexes. But if it's specifically a community risk property and you don't want to intermix that with your commercial properties, then you would list this as community risk only. You would only see that property under the community risk and property section. If this was a multifamily residential, let's say it's an apartment building, but we also want it in our community risk section, then we would list this as commercial and community risk. So I would see this property in both places. So that's the difference in this category section here. I'm going to keep this as community risk. Under the home type, this is a lookup table. So if you want to go in and modify your home type, this is a lookup table. Lookup tables can be modified under the administration in the lookup section. Okay, and all of this information is available on the iPad, and we'll switch over and we'll go through all this on the iPad as well. So do they have an escape plan, right? If they have an escape plan, it asks where the meeting place is. Have they practiced the escape plan? Is the property owned? Okay. I'm not going to make too many modifications in here. We're going to do all this on the app. The other things you're going to see in here, this contacts and phone numbers works the same. Notes works the same. History and documents are also the same. The difference is under here, instead of inspections, it says home safety surveys, and then it also has a section for detectors. I'm not going to go through all these sections because you're very familiar with these on the commercial side of things. This home fire safety survey section is really just the inspections piece. It's the same inspections piece that you're used to using today. I will go through the detectors section, however. So under the detectors, this is where you're able to add smoke detectors. We did have a couple of suggestions to rename this smoke alarms since they're technically not detectors. We've got that in our backlog. We may or may not change that. It kind of depends on how much feedback we get to push that change. But we have the ability to add detectors. So we have active detectors and inactive detectors. So if you had a grant where you received a bunch of smoke alarms or smoke detectors from whoever, from the Red Cross or from FEMA or wherever you were to receive these from, you can actually add these detectors in here one at a time. If I select add, you can see I can add new, or I can actually upload all of those and create a detector inventory if I wanted to. That's all done here under the detectors under community risk. So I have the notion of detectors in inventory, what's been installed and active, and what's out of service, and then under my settings. So let's just take a look at those quick. So I can click on detectors and I can say what's in my inventory. This is just my demo system. We've uploaded some of these to say, hey, here's a bunch of smoke detectors that we have in our inventory right now. You may or may not use this. I don't know if people are going to go through the process of actually adding. If you receive a couple hundred smoke detectors, you're going to actually add them into your database before you install them. You can. We've got an upload process that you can get into. You can get in touch with Josh and support, and he can help walk through that. The other piece is, though, you're probably likely going to add these one at a time. So if you wanted to add them one at a time, you can add them here. And this is all available on the iPad too. So if your engine companies are out doing some community risk stuff in the neighborhoods, and they grab a batch of these and they want to take them out, they can also add them one at a time in the field. So if you're assigning specific fire department numbers to these serial numbers, model number, purchase date, detector type, and detector power, you can add all those one at a time. You also have the notion to be able to track detector events. So this is installed and active. So this is just going to give you a list of what's been installed and what's active in the system. Tell you where it's located, what's installed, the purchase date or the install date. And then also we have out of service or inactive. So for whatever reason, we went out and removed some detectors that we'd put in previously that you wanted to remove now. You could still track that. You can still track that those were installed. And then under settings, you have the detector event types. And by default, we've given you 4 different event types under detectors: the detector install, a battery change, one that's been inactive, and one that's been serviced. We also have the ability to track the expiration dates for those types of events. Let me go back to properties. You can see that under properties here, I have these grids work the same as they do under the commercial property section. So for instance, if I don't want property ID in here, this doesn't really mean anything to me. I can right click in the blue ribbon there and I can hide this column. I've already got my grid set up to show most of the columns that I want to see. So I've got the resident's name, the street number, the street name, the street type, number of units in there, number of people in each unit, is the property owned, do they have escape plans, has it been practiced, number of adults, number of children, this is number of smokers, number of infants, number of elderly, number of disabled, and when the last time it was inspected. I've already got these sections, or I've already got these properties scheduled. Again, this works just the same way as you would schedule any other inspections. If I wanted to batch schedule these, I can just select them and right click and hit schedule. For the sake of time, I've already done that. And if I go up here to inspections, I can see what's already been scheduled. And again, these are completely separate than your commercial properties. So these are only scheduled inspections for community risk. Now, you can also add properties in the field, add community risk properties in the field like you would on the commercial side. So it's quite likely you wouldn't have any of these in here, and you're going to go out and canvass the neighborhood and knock on doors, and you can add those properties as you make contacts with residents. So you can do that as well. You don't have to pre-schedule these events. You can see I do have some pre-scheduled just for the sake of the demo and for the sake of the training and time. I've already got some scheduled, but you wouldn't have to do that. You could just go knock on doors and you can add these. You can add these on the fly. Okay. Under completed inspections, you also have completed inspections. So you can see all the completed inspections, and you can also modify these grids if you wanted to. So you can go into the column chooser and you can modify the grids under the column chooser. Okay. Same type of information as before. So let's switch over to the iPad and take a look at a couple of these. So I switch over to my iPad here, and you can see that I've already got a couple of these scheduled. Up in the upper left-hand corner in the hamburger menu, one of the things when you go in and schedule these, you'll see under inspections, you'll want to go down to the community risk section. By default, you're likely on commercial, and if I click on commercial, it's going to pop me back out and it says, here's your commercial inspections. You're not going to necessarily, you won't see any of the community risk inspections scheduled if you're on this commercial tab. So keep in mind that under the hamburger menu, you need to go down and select the community risk section. That will show you only your community risk. Those two are separate. So let's just pop in here. I can zoom in on a map if I wanted to. I can look at these, and these are, we just have these set up as residential townhomes here. But if I wanted to click on any one of these, I'm going to do this just the same as I do any other inspection. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to click View Inspection. You can see at the top, instead of property, it says tenant, right? And then it says contacts and it says history. Now on my tenant page, you can see that I have a couple of things here. If I click Begin Inspection down in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see that my page looks much different than the commercial inspections, because I'm not going to the level of detail on these community risk, and home fire safety survey inspections. And we're not even really going to call them inspections. It's really community contacts, right? Community education. So when I come in here, I've already got my address listed up here, and I may or may not want a name up here. I'm just going to leave this as the address for me. I've got myself automatically defaulted as the inspector. It's a community risk reduction inspection. By default, we just have that set up. Who is the responsible party? Well, who the responsible party is going to pull from your contacts, just like on a commercial inspection. I don't have that set up yet, so we would have to go into contacts. What's the building status? Right? I'll just say it's in normal use. If I wanted to add property notes, I know that's a little bit hard to see on the screen. There's a property notes box here. You just select edit and you'd add property notes just like you normally would any other property notes. I also have the ability to update locations. So Google's geocoding this and it's not quite correct, and I want to zoom in and geocode this a little more correctly or a little more exact. I can zoom in and click done and geocode that property more exact. Again, just like you would do on the commercial inspections. Next, I'm going to click on my contacts tab here, and I'll just add a contact. Okay, and I'm going to add a new general contact. I'm going to use the property address here. So I'll click copy property address, and I'll say it's just John Smith. Okay, they're the owner and the occupant. Just like in your commercial, this person you can set to receive reports, but if you make them the responsible party, they're already going to receive a copy of that report. So you don't need to set them to receive a copy of the report. The only thing that I would need to do here is add their email address. So I'll go ahead and do that. So I'll go ahead and add my email address. Make sure everything else is correct, and then I'm done. Okay. I can go back to my tenant page. I can select John Smith as the responsible party now. And I've fulfilled my requirements there. If you have additional contacts, you can add additional contacts. You can keep adding them. If I had any history of this property and any of the documents loaded, that would be listed here. Okay, that's under my history section. And then I get right into my checklist. I can go, we'll go in and take a look and show you how to modify these checklists here in a minute after we complete an inspection. But under my smoke detectors, this is where I can add smoke detectors if I'm installing smoke detectors. If we're just out doing community risk reduction type activities and knocking on doors and handing out flyers, I wouldn't necessarily have to add these smoke detectors, right? I can skip over this. But if I wanted to, I would just click add a detector. I can add one from inventory, or I'm going to add one that's not in my inventory. Okay, so when I jump in here, I'm going to say, by default, it's going to say it's installed and active. What type is it? Well, let's just say it's smoke. Do I have a department ID for this? Maybe if you were using a barcoding system and you had a barcode or a tag that you wanted to put on there, you could add that in here. I'm not going to do that. I'll just say it's battery only. The serial number is, okay. What floor is it installed? I'll say it's the first floor. The model number is an M12-1280. What room is it installed? We'll just say it's in the hallway. And then any other notes I want to make, I can do that. Down here, I've got my detector events. So under my detector events, I'll just say detector was installed, and I'll just select this. This is just a quick add button. So I'll say the detector's installed. I don't really need to do anything else. This is just my events. I can just select that very quickly, say the detector was installed. Maybe if I had a list of these and after you run this for a year, and you want to go back out and change batteries, you could go back out and run a list of these things and say, hey, let's schedule inspections where we installed smoke detectors last year. Number one, let's go see if they're still there. Number two, let's go see if, let's take some batteries out there and we'll change some batteries. Okay. And if you needed to change one, you could just say this one's inactive and you could add another one. So that's kind of the smoke detectors area, and you can play with that. You should be able to, these things are all set up in your system by default already. Under the smoke alarm contact, let's go down under the checklist on the left-hand side. So you can modify these sections as well. Did you make contact with the citizen? Yes or no, right? And if I set these up, it's going to say, well, if I didn't, why? Notes are required. So we didn't make any contact, notes are required. Okay. Again, you can modify these. Did the citizen refuse entry of the smoke alarm? Yes. And then you can add notes and add photos there if you wanted to. Then we get into our last piece, which is our home fire safety survey checklist. This is a default checklist that we add to your system when this module is added. You can go in and modify this, but by default, we add this for you. So just a couple of things under the property information is the address visible from the street. Similar things that you're looking at on commercial inspections again. What is the home type? Let's just say it's a single family home. Is it owned or rented? By default, we just say it's owned. If I want to take a couple of photos of the property, I can just say, I'll choose from my library here, and we'll add a photo. Okay. These photos are not going to be part of the inspection. This is going to be a property photo. So let's just add another one here and we'll go and see what that looks like. We'll just add a couple of photos there. Okay, and then we get down into the smoke detectors. So number of working smoke detectors in the house, we'll just say it was 2. Number of non-working smoke detectors, we'll just leave that at 0. Did you install smoke detectors? Yes. How many did you install? We'll say we installed 2. Okay, you can drag this slider up and down, or you can use the plus and minus buttons over here. And then we get into, did the occupant decline the recommended number of smoke detectors? No. And then it gets in kind of a checklist for your companies or for the people that are doing the work. Did you test the detector, right? Yes, we did. Did you talk about smoke detector batteries? Yes, we did. Did you talk about how to test? Yes. Did you talk about batteries? Yes. Did you give education material to the occupant? Yes, we did. Okay. Does the property have burglar bars? If I say yes, it just says, hey, add notes and add photos, and then have the burglar bars been approved? Do the burglar bars open from the window without a key? Right. Does the home have a working telephone? Yes. Are there fire extinguishers present? And again, I'm not going to go through every single one of these in detail, but you can, by default, these are in here and you can go in and modify these if you want to. If they have a meeting place for their fire protection, you go in and just say, yes, let's do this. Has the escape plan been practiced? Do they have a meeting place? Yes. And we'll say it's on the front sidewalk. And then we just have a checklist about general fire safety. Are there combustibles, electrical equipment, adequate clearance, those types of things. And we get into demographics down below. Okay. So under the demographics, we'll just say other. Number of total occupants, we'll say 4. Number of infants, we'll leave at 0. Number of children, we'll say 2. Number of adults is 2. Elderly, disabled, and smokers, we'll leave all that at 0. Okay, if I'm completed with this inspection, I can hit complete inspection, just like I normally do, and you can see it gives me my notes that signatures are required, so I'll go ahead and sign it. Need customer signature, which you wouldn't necessarily have to do this. You could leave this as, I'll just say it's John Smith, and we'll submit and complete this inspection. Are you sure we want to complete? Yes. Now, just like our other inspections, I have the ability to review this once it's completed, and now I can re-edit this. If we forgot anything before I sync this, I have the ability to re-edit this inspection. So let me go back through that a little bit slower. So once I've completed this inspection, you can see that it's turned green. I have a completed inspection here. If I click on that, I can click Review Inspection, and then I have the ability to re-edit this. Now, I can only do this before I sync. So if I back out and sync this, I'll go ahead and sync my inspection back up to the cloud, uploading my information. We're all done there. Let's go back into the admin portal here, and we'll take a look at that property. Okay, so let's go back into my community, still under community risk. Let's go back over to properties. My address there was 8045 Beech Tree. So let's go look at 8045. 8045 Beech Tree is right here. This is the one we just completed. Now, if I scroll over, you can see it has all this information in this property grid now. So I set up my property grid to show me all the fields that I want to show, give me the last inspected date, and I can sort by any of these columns, correct? I can just click on that column and it'll sort by it. So I can go up here and I can say, I can export this to XLS. I can export this to CSV. If I wanted to take a look at all the properties I have in here when the last time they were inspected, I can go and export this data to XLS or CSV, and I've got an entire list of properties that I've inspected, and it shows me all of the grid selections I have set up here. Let's look at the inspections and look at completed inspections. This is the one we just completed. I can click on view this so we can take a look at what the report looks like. You can set these up in your system. We do have a new report writer coming out here with probably in the next 30 days that we have a lot more ability to add and modify information on these forms. But let's get into the community risk reduction information. It says violation information pages. This just says general inspection information. So this report by default is going to be emailed out to the homeowner, to the tenant, if you collect their information and they give you the email address and everything else. So this is basically just all the information from the checklist, right? And it's providing them. It's basically providing them with a simple report showing them, everything that you did. Okay. So you have this in your system, and this also is emailed out to the tenant. So under templates, you have the notion of your walk-in templates, or your these are your commercial. We call them the walk-in or commercial templates, and you also have community risk. So if I select templates and community risk, here's what I have for community risk. I have a home fire safety, and I have another one in here. It's called the Red Cross Smoke Detector Survey. So if I want to take a look at this and manage my checklist here, I can come in and manage my checklist under the home fire safety. And this is looking at my community risk checklist. Right? So you can see that I have a smoke detector checklist. I have my smoke alarm contact and my home fire safety. Right? And if I wanted to rearrange those, I could rearrange those. Right? Just like that. And then I have a couple of system checklists over here for permits and systems. Really where you're going to go in and make modifications is under the checklist area. If I hover over checklist, I go into community risk. And under my home fire safety and smoke alarm contacts, I click on my home fire safety, manage fields, and I can manage these checklists just like I can any of the commercial checklists. Okay, so my property information is, is the property address visible from the street? Yes or no? This is included in the reports. Okay, and I can go in and take a look at all those reports too. Those reports are going to get emailed to the homeowner or to the occupant of the property, just like we do with the commercial inspection reports. So I can go in and modify any one of these. These should already be pre-built in your system today under your community risk, and then under templates and checklists. So all of these are already built in there today. Okay, so you can go through and modify those, and you can take a look at those, and you can. These are some of the data in there is going to predefined tables. So there's some things you can modify, but you have to be careful of how those get modified. I'll go back into the admin section here really quick and kind of show you where those lookups come from. So that's all under lookup management. So if I want to go into, if I want to look at home type, and I just type in home, I should see type of home here. So if I wanted to modify my lookups for home type, I could go in there and modify my lookups for home type. I've got apartment and condo and duplex and mobile home and residential other and single family and townhome. If I wanted to add another, I could. Maybe you did this in a high rise or something. You could do that as well. If you have any questions, go ahead and type them in the chat. Kimberly had a question. Is this available or visible within First Due? We replicate our information to First Due. So they would have this information available to them in the database. Now, it would be up to them to grab this information from your database. So it would be available, yes. If you have an agreement with First Due and we're replicating the database to them, they do have the ability to grab this data. Now, I don't know for sure if it's in their system today or not. You'd have to check with them, but it is available to them. If you do have questions or want to take it offline, please feel free to call us in sales or reach out to Josh in support. We're happy to help you walk through this or make any modifications you need to. If you have data that you need to import into this, we can also help you with that. I know that we've had departments reach out to us and ask us, to do a smoke. They're going to do a smoke detector blitz, and they have a list of addresses they want imported into this. We can help you with that as well. So, if there are no further questions, I definitely appreciate everybody joining. Hopefully, if you want to use this for Fire Prevention Month, get a hold of us and we can help you to get this added to your system and configured to make sure it's working for your department. Okay, thank you, everyone.